And so, I mean, office culture is office culture. Of course, there's usually each area of the business has the one person that's spirit committee, takes care of all the birthdays, and there's always a cake there, and new kids are born, and people get engaged, and there's always cake. Lego loves cake. If there is an occasion to have a cake will be provided. So cake for new kids being born, cakes for engagements, cakes for work anniversaries, cakes for retirement parties. Like every day there was a cake. It's like there's another cake.
Welcome to another episode of Industry Insiders. I'm your host for today's episode, Austin Prentice. Growing up, everyone had their favorite toy. For some, it was the original 1978 run of Kenner Star Wars action figures. For others, it was those more than meets the eye robots that could transform into vehicles and back. For me, it was the little plastic building blocks that hurt like the dickens whenever they got stuck underneath your foot. Today's guest took his passion for those same plastic bricks and turned it into a 12-year career filled with ups and downs. And he's here today to tell us about it.
My name is Kevin Hinkle, and my current occupation is I'm a freelance artist.
Okay, so what does your main freelance artist work consist of?
So I do a couple things in particular. Brand design is something I specialize in, and that usually is a lot of logo design. I also do illustrations as needed. So sometimes that can be something as simple as draw my child, and I can do stuff like that. And then graphic design. Graphic design can be anything from designing stickers to posters, marketing materials, and I do a lot of that for different businesses around the world.
Okay, so currently you are a freelance graphic designer, but what was your job previous to that?
So prior to that, I was a marketing integration manager for the Lego Group. So that was focused on integrating the Lego fan community better into the Lego business.
You've talked about it extensively on other shows and other podcasts. So just kind of for us, a very different audience that has no idea about your background whatsoever, just give us a brief summary of what brought you to that job.
Sure, absolutely. As you've said, I have gone in insane amount of detail on other channels and other opportunities. I actually even started a year ago. I started recording my own podcast called Forever Sorted, which lives on YouTube. And we are 60 episodes in talking about my entire career working for the Lego Group. So I worked at Lego for 12 years. In those 12 years, I had a lot of different roles, but interestingly enough, I started working for Lego because I needed a job while I was going to art school. So I was going to art school and I said, well, it'd be really fun to work in a Lego store. And so there was a shopping mall locally near my art college. And so I walked in, I applied, and began a 12-year career that started in the retail world and then eventually moved into community management, I should say, and then ended in marketing. So I spent 12 years there in a couple different areas. Actually, I moved across the country 3 times for the Lego company. That is the reason why I'm currently living in the state of Connecticut, was for the Lego company. And so in that time, I got to know quite a few people all over, not only the United States, but North and South America, as well as Europe, because a lot of my job was very PR focused. So being very PR, you have to meet a lot of people and build a lot of networks.
What I find interesting about that story is that you were going to school for something you wanted to do. And then through just needing a job just to help pay the bills, get your way through art school, you ended up finding a 12-year career at a major corporation that is beloved worldwide.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
It really is. It really does kind of show that anything can happen and in the world when when looking for your career, that sometimes you end up in a place you didn't expect. So at that job, what was a typical day like? What did it entail? Because you were a marketing manager, you weren't helping design the next Millennium Falcon set or a Ninjago Dragon. You were reaching out to different communities and stuff. And not every day can be Brick Fair, Virginia. So I'm guessing there was some paperwork involved here and there. It wasn't all just playtime every day.
No, it was not. So, a number of years in my career towards the end is focused on community management. And community management at Lego is very different than a lot of other brands in terms of community management. So I know that when I had experiences like sitting on a plane, and the lady next to me is like, "Oh, what do you do?" As I work community management for the Lego Group, they would always assume community management is schools and the local neighborhood, and kind of like getting active with your community, like your town, your local municipalities or whatever. And I was like, no, I just talk to fans. So I had to clarify how the Lego company defines community. So for me, a typical day, I mean, there kind of almost wasn't a typical day, just because when you work with an external fan base, which were basically my stakeholders, right? So these are the people that I'm tasked with managing, talking to, understanding, and bringing their voice inside of the organization. They have their own jobs and their own lives, and this is a hobby to them. And so this is my job, it's their hobby. So if they're not available to talk until 11 o'clock at night, I kind of need to be available at 11 o'clock at night to talk to them. So, sometimes I could have a really early morning meeting. So if I needed to touch base with our headquarters in Denmark, which is in Europe, it's 6 hours time difference. I might have to hop on a meeting as early as 7 in the morning. But sometimes I wouldn't come in the office until 9 or 10. And then I would leave at different times. Sometimes I'd leave at 4, sometimes at 5, sometimes at 6. Maybe I was traveling. I did a lot of traveling as well. So as you mentioned, Brick Fair, Virginia was just one of many shows I would go to every year. At its max, I went to 13 events in 1 year. That was the most I went to. That was quite exhausting, actually, and it caused a lot of personal problems. So I voiced my frustrations and asked for assistance. And instead of kind of getting what I wanted, which was my request was for a partner. I said, can I please have someone to help me so that we can split the workload? The company actually went a different direction, which I guess is not terribly unexpected. But they said, we'll just go to less. And so they limited me to only going to 6 events per year from that point on. But yes, I mean, a typical day could be anything. It could be me waking up to 200 emails because a new Lego product is leaked. And everybody's trying to figure out who did it, why they did it, how do we get to the bottom of it, and how can we punish the people that have shared it on the website. And so that usually gets people going. So I could literally roll up and go, oh my goodness, what are all these emails? Or I could have a more casual day where I would try to aim for an 8 to 4. That was like my goal, was an 8 to 4 work day. I wouldn't say it happened successfully all the time, but my goal was 8 to 4. I would come into the office and spend a couple hours chewing through emails, seeing what was on the schedule for the day, and then a whole bunch of meetings. Corporate life has all kinds of meetings. And then in the day, again, kind of going back through emails, and then heading home. And yeah, sometimes there'd be phone calls in the evening because I've been trying to email somebody all day long. And they have their own job. They're like, well, sorry, I can't talk to you until 8 o'clock tonight because I have to get done with my job. And so if it was an important matter, I'd be at home and I'd say, well, I've got to take this phone call. But in an ideal setting, an 8 to 4 was a normal day. And there would be travel usually once every other month. And the travel could last a week as an average. Sometimes it was 4 days. At most, it was 2 full weeks. I never traveled anywhere for longer than 2 full weeks.
something you touched on there that I hadn't really considered, I find very interesting. You mentioned, waking up one morning and finding 200 emails because, something new has leaked, which means that a product that Lego is going to be coming out with in the future has been revealed to the public early through non-official Lego sources. It's funny you bring this up as something that might happen in the day-to-days, because today, as we're recording, some of those very things are starting to pop up for what we perceive to be, winter 2020 stuff. There's some Avengers stuff. There's some Ninjago stuff that's been popping up, some minifigure designs that are very interesting for fans. So I imagine that that people that are in that position now are probably having to go through some of that right now. So that's interesting that you bring that up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's the nature of the beast, as it were, when you're a company. Well, I mean, actually what's interesting is Lego is a toy company, right? First and foremost, it's a toy company. But they have been spending a number of years evolving into a company that also produces theatrical films and also produces television, and Netflix series, and multimedia approach on web series. And so they're becoming more of a multimedia cultural phenomenon. And they're not equipped for the excitement and the passion that is tied to being such a entity. So, people like Disney, which Disney, I understand, is probably the most extreme example.
For sure.
But Disney's got it down. Like they have this engine. The people that work in Disney, because being at Lego, you actually have a lot of cross opportunities to speak with other people from other companies. They would call it the Disney engine. They'd say, "Oh, we have the Disney engine." They just flip a switch, and like every different multimedia approach would start working in this beautiful harmony. And Lego has been spending years trying to get to that point. So they're not necessarily used to people being so incredibly excited for a product that they are searching the Lego.com photo cache, or they are reaching out to the third-party vendors that Lego uses to make cardboard end caps for stores to see if they know what's like. That was how the second generation of Bionicle was leaked.
Oh yeah, it was. Oh yeah, it was.
Because the end cap, there was a third-party like cardboard supplier in like the Ukraine, and it was like.
And then what's worse about that is those things never ended up getting used. We saw all these mock-ups and these designs for them leak on the internet that confirmed that Bionicle was coming back, and then we never ever saw them in stores, which was that's Generation 2 in a nutshell. It's just kind of wasted opportunities. Anyway,
yeah. Totally.
So we have a question here from someone in the audience. So
good.
Just kind of comparing that job to your current job, graphic design and art, it can be very subjective to a client. How do designers succeed currently in the industry? Yeah,
so, as I had mentioned before, I've my whole life, I've been interested in the fields of art and illustration and graphic design. I remember being in elementary school and taking art workshops in the summer. And so the Lego thing was a very interesting side path for a dozen years. But I never stopped creating and designing and illustrating. And something that I find interesting, regardless of what your job is, you still find ways to integrate your passion into it. And so, I was working in Lego, but boy, did I get told I had the best PowerPoints all the time. People were like, "You have the best PowerPoints." And I was like, well, I mean, I enjoy creating visuals, and they're like, where did you find these images? Sometimes I'd be like, I drew it. Like if I needed an example of like, some guy holding up a coffee cup and like going, aha, with his finger in the air, I would just draw it. I'd just draw it, scan it, and throw it in there. And so I would try to find ways to integrate what I like to do into what I was doing, which is a little bit more mundane. So from what I do now, the most important thing is, when you're a freelancer too, is your bills are paid based on your clients. And so you have to ensure you find a balance of giving the client what they want, but also, trying to provide your voice as a designer. Sometimes they don't want to hear that voice. Sometimes they want what they want, and you just need to give them what they want. What's really dangerous is when I have clients that'll say, well, you're the artist, so you should do it. And I'm like, no, that's a trap. To quote our friend Admiral Akbar, that is a trap. That is a total trap. Because a lot of times, I have a totally different idea what than they do. And so I'll create something and go, well, here you go. You said I was the artist. And they go, well, I didn't think we were going to do that. I said, well, see, we could have saved time if you just told me what you wanted to do. And I've told a lot of clients, over the last few years, I've been doing this for 2 years now, that don't think you're going to hurt my feelings. Like it's not, this is not an emotional thing. Like, if you want me to draw a specific thing, just have me draw a specific thing. Like, sometimes people have told me, they go, well, I don't want you to stifle your creativity by telling you I want you to draw a piece of wood with a nail in it. Like, no, but if you want to pay me to draw a piece of wood with a nail in it, I'm going to draw a piece of wood with a nail in it. Like, I'm not going to be offended that this job is not giving me more creative gravitas. It's like, it's fine. It's okay. I think that was the answer to the question. Maybe I ran too much.
Okay, very good. So, kind of going back to not the question we just did, but the one before that about day to day. I've just now thought of this as we've been talking. What was last job compared to this job? What was office culture like? Because of course you moved to Connecticut. That's where Lego U.S. corporate office is. So, I mean, like, how often did you have to go into the office? Did you work from home a lot because it is this community manager job? And it's like, what's the difference between that and now?
Yeah. When you work for the Lego corporate office, you are given a company paid for mobile phone and laptop. So, the tools are given to you so that if you need to work on the go, you can. And there is a very relaxed schedule there in terms of working from home and or working from the office. Of course, there were people that I knew probably pretty similar to any office environment that really like to abuse the work from home option, where you'd see them once every couple of months and you're like, does that person still work here? And then there were people that were just in the office every single day. I kind of floated in the middle. I hate driving in the snow, so whenever it would snow, I'd be like, I'm working from home, because I don't want to shove in my driveway. But it's like, yeah, I'll work from home. If there was something going on with my kids, because I have 2 kids, if like there was dentist appointments or doctor's appointments that were like kind of just interjected in the middle of the day, I would just stay home because it was easier. So I didn't work from home terribly often. Now, that being said, if emergencies happen, which it's funny to think emergencies in a community relations role, but there are, then yeah, of course, I pull up the laptop and send a quick email, or pull out my phone and send a quick email when I'm like sitting at eating dinner in a restaurant. So that was a thing. The culture in the office was it kind of varied on which area of the business you were exploring. So I used to be totally enamored with product design and with creative visual. So product design, of course, the people that make the toys, right? Just an absolutely almost whimsical area of the business. Everybody's happy. They're just like, they're just flowing their creative ideas. They're building stuff. They're having fun. They're like workspaces, just to me, were delightful. They would have like toys everywhere and action figures and drawings, and just like it was like wonderful place. And then also from the creative visual area, those are the people working on the catalogs and the magazines and the graphics in the stores and the box art. And again, I got the same vibe. Like, I remember the director of the area of the business in Enfield, Connecticut, which is where I was, had a television, beanbag chairs, Super Nintendo, and Nintendo in his office. This was the director of the creative visual area.
That's incredibly laid back.
And I was like, this is where I want to be. But then again, 20 feet to the right is a cube farm. A area of cubicles. People are all just sitting there tapping away at computers. Everyone has their own headphones on, not really kind of integrating with anybody else. And they're the people that are working on, they're working on updating the website, or they're working on the VIP program, like the more technical things. And I had the distinct pleasure of being in the cube farm. So I was sitting there. A lot of people in the cube farm would look at me going, well, that's the fan guy. I mean, he kind of has a fun little thing. Like I set up a little bookcase to put all the fan books on it because I thought that was cool. But I was very like out of place with everybody else because they had very clean kept cubicles and the one fern in the corner and the rolly chair. And so, I mean, office culture is office culture. Of course, there's usually each area of the business has the one person that's spirit committee, takes care of all the birthdays, and there's always a cake there, and new kids are born, and people get engaged, and there's always cake. Lego loves cake. If there is an occasion to have a cake will be provided. So cake for new kids being born, cakes for engagements, cakes for work anniversaries, cakes for retirement parties. Like every day there was a cake. It's like there's another cake. And we had about 750 employees in Enfield.
Oh, wow.
There's like a cake, I don't know, every 3 days there's a cake. In Billund, Denmark, which is where the company's headquarters, there's 4,000 employees. So there was, on average, when I would visit Denmark, which was a couple times a year, I think there was on average about 2 to 3 cakes per day.
Wow.
So there was just cakes everywhere. And you come in and go, what is this cake for? And it's like, oh, you'd like read the little like nameplate. You're like, so-and-so's 25th work anniversary. Okay, all right. I guess I'm having some of this cake. It's lots of cake. So, but yeah, it's also at sometimes I would kind of get flashbacks to like being in high school. I feel like, so we're in high school. I see the cool kids are sitting together over there at the lunch table, and I see the artists are all over there together. Like I would make these observations with my work friends, being like, are we like the jocks or are we the nerds? I'm trying to figure out who we are. But they tried to make it. The company tried to make it a nice environment. There was a gym. There's a cafeteria. There's an employee store where we get Lego products at 50% off. They'd have an auditorium, which was really nice. And if you wanted to, you could just go in there at lunch and plug in your laptop. I would go in there at lunch sometimes and be like, let's watch The Office. So we'd just sit there for lunch and have the giant projector screen in the auditorium play The Office and watch Michael Scott yell at somebody. So, I mean, it was okay. I think it was pretty on par with a lot of other offices.
Thinking, still holding on to that idea of office culture, and you've told some very interesting stories through your various podcast appearances and stuff. One of my favorites you've told is the kid buying an Exo-Force set, removing the minifigure, and then handing you back the minifigure, walking out with the mech. That one just blows my mind.
It's crazy.
So thinking of all of those, what's your favorite moment while working at specifically the manager position?
Okay, in the stores?
The community manager position.
Okay, gotcha.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Yeah, that because the Exo-Force one was in my retail days. And overall, my 12 years at Lego, half of them were in a retail environment, and the other half were in the corporate environment. So I would say my favorite moment was, and I mean, there's a bunch of them, but I would say if I had to kind of boil them down to an average, it was when I was out traveling at a show, whatever that show is going to be, and somebody would pull me aside and they would just thank me for being there and for listening to them and showing them that the company overall cares, that there is somebody there who's talking with a group full of fans, an expo center full of 1,000 fans, who the company technically doesn't owe anything to. These are consumers that just bought their products and they decided to get together in Expo Hall and put them on a table. You don't see a lot of other companies caring too much about what people do with their products after they bought them. But I had a lot of experiences over the years where people would be like, hey, you know what? Thanks for being here. And it was always like very heartfelt, very, very touching. And it was all sincere. I thoroughly enjoyed my time at the shows, and I liked talking to people. I especially like talking to people that would not talk to me. So I'd be like, that person is not talking to anybody, so I'm going to go talk to And they'd usually be like, "Oh no, the Lego person's talking to me. I don't know what to say." So I enjoyed that interaction traveling to the shows.
Okay. I mean, I could definitely see where that would be a plus for both sides of the conversation. I just coming from a fan's perspective, I can remember TTV getting back from Brick Fair, Virginia, 2016, which was in the days immediately after Bionicle G2's untimely early cancellation,
Yeah.
and them being very appreciative that some of the Bionicle set designers were there on hand for them to talk to and to dissect the Makuta combo model to see what they got wrong and right, and just reverse engineering it from pictures. So I mean, I can definitely see how that would be a highlight of the job. Unfortunately, as we've kind of been discussing, that is your previous job and not your current one. So how did that one come to an end?
For which for the community manager?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other important life lesson is, no matter how much time and energy and passion you can throw into a company, you really are a number. And that's how it is. When it's a giant company, a giant organization, I was one of those kind of holdouts that was like, no, they're different. They're different. But Lego hit financial troubles at the end of 2016. Yes, 2016. At the end of 2016, the company posted a 2% drop in profits, which was the first time that had happened in 11 years. And they decided to treat it as if the sky was falling. So 2% in profits. They had still made more money than they ever had before, but they decided real change needed to happen, and they needed to lay off 2,000 people. And so they hired an external company. They came in and did a full audit on the whole organization, interviewed a bunch of people, and lo and behold, people that had been there 15 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 25 years, 40 years, were all let go. So the decision was made that they really didn't think the North American community necessarily needed community managers anymore. They felt as though the community was, quote, mature, so it could kind of manage itself. I mean, I wholeheartedly disagree, but of course I would. And so, but that was kind of the story there. And I mean, some people were in the great layoffs of 2017 were able to get other roles elsewhere, but unfortunately, it was not in the cards for me. So I was let go. It was not anything I had any desires to end. But I was also spending almost an entire year getting ready for it, because to their credit, they did tell us in January, or pretty early in 2017, that by the end of 2017, that's when I left Lego, was December of 2017, that people would be laid off, and it was going to be a lot of people. And so we basically had a year to prep and plan our lives. And so in that year, I spent an incredible amount of time getting ready to lose my job. I didn't know I was going to lose my job, but I said, let me get ready
just in case.
And so in that whole year, I definitely fell back to my illustration, my animation, my graphic design, and started establishing my own art business. That's when I filed my paperwork to have an employee identification number with the IRS, so I could start invoicing people to do stuff. I created social accounts for all of my art business so that I could start that process. So I spent a year getting ready. And so when it happened, of course, it was still a very surreal moment. I mean, 12 years being gone in one meeting in a HR conference room is kind of incredible. But that's how it happened. And here I am on the other end, 2 years into working for myself.
Thinking about what had happened and everything, do you have any advice for students about to enter the workplace and on how to deal with their own careers, ups and downs, and maybe specifically for those that want to pursue graphic design?
Sure. So yeah, anything creative, graphic design, illustration, my biggest piece of advice is to not stop. If you have a passion for doing it, keep doing it. Whether you have a quote unquote job in that field or not is almost irrelevant. If you're an Uber driver and you like to draw, keep drawing. If you work at a fast food place and you like to, design things, keep designing, even just for fun, just to keep practicing it. Because the thing is, you stop, you get rusty, and then the rust kind of like turns even harder, and then it just like it can go away so quickly. I used to play the piano actually when I was really young. I played the piano for 5 years of my life, and I got really good. Then I stopped to really pour all my time in art, and I don't know how to play it anymore. And I'm like, man, I should have kept playing the piano. But so anything creative, my biggest piece of advice is to keep doing it. You never know what's going to happen and when when those opportunities are going to arise. In terms of like pursuing a career or a job, like I said, my one big takeaway from Lego in a corporate setting. I mean, keep in mind that was my only corporate setting job ever. But it was something a lot of my friends and family told me is like, just remember, companies are companies, and just always kind of be careful that you don't pour too much of your soul into a company, because the company won't necessarily treat you the same way that you'd like them to. Of course, do your job, do it well. I definitely recommend when you're given a task, do it as well as you can. And I definitely think my journey up through the ladder, through my 12 years at Lego, I got promoted 5, 6, 7 times. It's because I always did the job I was given as best as I could, and went all in with it. But the emotional connection, just be a little weary of. Don't feel like this is too much of a family. I guess I should say. Now, there's some great companies out there, and Lego also does a lot of great stuff. I think there's a lot of really amazing things they do as a company. But it's just, be careful to romanticize companies too much. It can be dangerous, and I don't think it helps mentally.
As we're running out about a little over a half hour, I think we'll start to wrap up here. So we'll finish on 2 quick questions. One of these I've come up with as we've been talking, and this is from stuff you've said, and this is kind of personal to me and my interests. So you were still working there whenever, and we had a very brief mention of the leaks surrounding Bionicle G2 back in mid to late 2014. So what was your experience being on the company end of that? Because for fans, we were ecstatic that this thing that had been going on for 10 years of our childhood had ended in 2010. 4 to 5 years later was coming back. It was very, very happy. It was a very happy time for us. What was that like for you guys on the other side? I don't think this is something that's ever really been discussed too much in the community. So this is something that I find very interesting to see your insights on.
Yeah. So my favorite memory of the Generation 2 of Bionicle was when the plans were shared with me internally that it was going to come back. Granted, Lego knows things usually anywhere from 18 to 24 months in advance. That's kind of that timetable they work in. So when it was shared with me, yes, Bionicle is going to come back, and it's going to come back the following year. I'm trying to remember what year that was, maybe 2014, 2015. I don't know. But I was told, and this was at like a peak busyness time in my career. Like I was working super long hours. That was the year I think I traveled like 13 times in the year. I was like running on fumes. The gas tank was empty. But I was doing the job and doing what I could. But my favorite memory actually was I was told, hey, Bionicle's coming back. We'd like to do a whole bunch of exciting things with our fans and with the community. Can you find us like a short list of people that we can begin the process of integrating them into our marketing plans? And I was like, I do not have time for this. I remember like going through my email going, this is really awesome. I'm really excited, but I also have 0 time to do this. And so it was like a day or 2 later, I was in Houston because I was traveling there to attend a show called Brick Fiesta. So I was sitting in my hotel in Houston, fully dressed in uniform, ready to go downstairs to go to this expo. And I called up Andrew Boltop, who is the kind of owner and head moderator of the website BZ Power. And it's because I had his phone number as well. And I said, Andrew, I have to tell you something. It's very important. I do not have a lot of time. And he's like, okay, you are currently an ambassador for your community, which means you are under a NDA with the LEGO group. You cannot talk about what I'm going to tell you. He goes, I'm aware of this. I know. And I was like, okay. So Bionicle's going to come back next year. And then I just like stopped. And I waited. He didn't make any noises or sounds. And he was like, really? I'm like, yes. Okay. It's like, okay. So here's where I need your help.
It's a lot to take in.
It is a lot to take in. I was like, here's how I need your help, man. They want me to get like a short list of people to help kind of start brainstorming some cool ideas that you guys can be involved. I don't have any time to like go find people. So like I need you to put together a list of some folks so we can start the process. You can't tell any of these people that it's coming back, so I'm going to leave that up to you on how to figure that out, how to recruit people into a marketing agenda and not being able to tell them what the marketing agenda is about. But I have all the faith in the world in you. Thank you very much. I'll call you in a week. Goodbye. And I was like, done. And then I went to the show and I did that. And then the week later, we talked and he's like, okay, I've got a couple people. Yes, it was very difficult to tell them I need your help with something with LEGO, but I can't tell you what it is. But then, yeah, I passed that over to the marketing people, and then that is where a lot of the things were born. Like the preview party in New York was born out of that first conversation. Going to New York Comic Con in general was born out of that conversation. That was when the TTV, the three virtues at the time, because they were not TTV then.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The three virtues were put on, quote, on the radar, and they were brought in to have secret conversations. So I thought that was really fun. I liked being a part of it. For the little role I played, I was like, here you go, here's people, and I'm out. So that was kind of fun. In terms of the leaks, the leaks are always the same, like no matter what they are, whether it's a Star Wars leak, a Bionicle leak, Ninjago leak. Leaks never stop. They're always 100% at the fault of the company. Whether they haven't told a third party that they shouldn't share that information if asked, whether they have not properly encrypted the photo cache, whether they have not told Sears Canada they can't upload that yet, whether they haven't given proper training to a Walmart staffer to tell them, no, you can't show that product. They've made bigger stickers to go on the shipping containers that say, do not put on shelf by this day. It still gets violated all the time. It's all the time those things get put out on the shelf.
Yeah, the system works great until you have actual people involved.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the whole street dated term was originated, is Target and Walmart would put the stuff on the shelf and they're not supposed to. And then when people try to pay for it, the system goes, you can't sell them this.
Yeah, they were very, very strict with that with the Ninjago movie stuff in September of 2017. They were very strict with that time around.
And so what drove me absolutely bananas is the company, of course, there's always exceptions, but if I had to generalize, the company more often than not would blame the fans for the leaks. And I would say that does not make any sense. So they are not busting through our windows and ziplining down and taking spy cam photos. Like, they are the things that you're not happy are leaking because we're not doing a better job. They are just excited. And so they're sharing the information through their forums, through websites, through Reddits, through whatever, because they're excited about it. Like, we should be thankful we have a community of fans so excited that they're sharing it and doing free promotion and advertising for us. But that was a constant fight, is that, the legal team, the PR team, the social media team, the default was always, oh no, another thing is leaked. Gosh darn those fans, I hate them so much. And it's like, no, that's the wrong thing. You should say, gosh darn Sears, I hate them so much because they leaked it. Or Toys R Us. Toys R Us was a notorious leaker.
So much for them.
Yeah, so much for them. That's what happened there. But that was a constant fight, was trying to educate my colleagues in that fans don't leak things. Fans just share the things we have leaked. So that was something that was constantly an issue. And I would say out of all the things that leaked, the things that caused the biggest eruptions at the office was always Disney related leaks.
Of course.
Anything that had anything to do with Disney would lose their minds. It'd be like, please step in and fix it. Like more than anybody else, like more than Warner or DC or Marvel, like Disney official. If it was especially Star Wars related, they would like go to DEFCON 4 every time. And it was a very dangerous thing, a dangerous game to play. But everything else was kind of, if it was like a Lego owned property, like a Creator or City or Friends, usually the company would just say, well, I guess we'll do better next time. They didn't. But they would just say, oh, well, we'll live with it. But they were constantly, as we said, trying to put toothpaste back in the tube for Disney stuff all the time.
Yeah, I've had my own personal issues with Disney the last couple of years. I could definitely see how they would get stingy with some of that stuff. So, all right, final question as we're wrapping up here is, you've talked on other podcasts about what your favorite Lego set is. What is your, and this may be a more difficult question than the other one, what is your least favorite set and why? Just a fun little question to end on.
No, that is not difficult to answer at all. My least favorite Lego set is Iron Man versus the Mandarin Ultimate Showdown.
That's my answer too.
That is the worst set I've ever seen in my life. It is a small, like, I think it's like an $8 set.
Yeah, it was very inexpensive.
It's based on Iron Man
quotes there.
It is bumper cars, flame-throwing bumper cars.
The flamethrower buggy of doom I hear it called a lot.
It is. It has nothing to do with the source material. It is so, well, not even just nothing to do. It has created out of thin air things that have not existed, and I laugh at it. I cry at it. It is the worst set, but I almost love it now because it's the worst.
I've gone from the hate to the loving side of it, but it's still probably the worst set I've ever seen, let alone own. I got it solely for the Heartbreaker Iron Man minifigure. That came with it, because I think that's a great design in terms of the actual armor design and the printing on the minifigure.
Yeah.
So I got it just for that, but it's funny to look on my shelf and go, yeah, that's the thing that exists, and that's one of the things that's probably a better question for set designer. But I mean, what lengths you go to preserve spoilers? Because that's the reason that set exists, is to cover up the Mandarin twist in Iron Man 3. That's the whole reason it exists. So that's an interesting wave of sets there. So I find it interesting that we have the exact same answer there. So
it's the worst. It's totally the worst. And I say it at any chance I get. Like when people are like, oh, I mean, this set's not that bad, or like, this has got to be the worst set of all time. If I'm in like a YouTube chat, a live chat, I will always throw down Iron Man versus the Mandarin : Ultimate Showdown. Like, I'll always just drop that into chats and stuff. I'll be like, that's the worst set ever made. It's just the worst.
Okay, so I said that was the last question. I'm sorry, I lied. We got another one from the chat. In your opinion, what ultimately makes Lego a unique product compared to other things that might be similar to it on the market or other toy companies in general?
Yeah, so in terms of other toy companies, Lego as a product, I think, is brilliant because it can truly be anything you want it to be. There was an old marketing slogan that Lego used more than a dozen years ago, which was, it's a new toy every day. And it really is. It's a creative medium that you can use to do absolutely anything in the world. You can make a 40-foot tall robot like they have at the Mall of America, or you can make an actual functional car like they've done with the giant life-size Bugatti. Like, you can make truly anything with it. It is limitless. In terms of other construction toys, because it's not the only game in town, there's Mega Constructs, there's Nano Block, there's Lincoln Logs, of course, there's Tinker Toys. I like Lego in that I feel like it is one of the highest quality products. I wouldn't necessarily say they have like all the IP power, the intellectual properties of other companies, because I'm a diehard Pokemon fan. So Mega Construx has Pokemon, so I'm all about those.
Yeah,
But
they've got the more edgy, quote unquote, stuff because of Lego's kind of no violence policy they've become lax on somewhat recently.
yes,
So of course, Mega Constructs, they've got your Call of Duty build stuff. They've got Destiny. I'm not sure they do it anymore, but they had Assassin's Creed for a while. So they've got, those edgy rated M for mature video game type things.
absolutely.
That will never, ever do in a million years.
Absolutely. And yeah, they are playing an interesting game these days because it's like they are very family friendly. We don't do anything modern violence or modern whatever. But I'm like, well, but James Bond is totally modern. And they have a James Bond Aston Martin.
Yeah, and that's another thing, though, is that it's just the car. It's not a whole theme around the movies or this franchise, whatever. It's just the one set. So, I mean, it's like...
Yeah. And that one in particular... it's very fascinating because even then, if it's like, well, okay, maybe it's just a car, well, then all you need is the Aston Martin branding. But instead, they got the official licensing for 007. So on the box, it's 007. But whatever, I digress. But so I think it's the highest quality product in the construction toy biz. Because, I mean, they do work together. The clutch power is absolutely perfect. The parts come together, and then they pop apart when you need them to. As opposed to Mega, where a lot of times some of them are too hard, where like you put them together and they're never coming apart again, or they are a little too loose. And so, but I think it is an incredible toy, and I think it does have the power to change a lot of people's lives in a lot of ways.
I mean, you look at Lego's name. A lot of people don't know this. They just know Lego as, it's Lego, but a lot of people don't know that it's actually derived from the Danish words play well, legot. Yep. So it's right. So the brand of the toy you're playing with is telling you to play well. I mean, that's ingenious. So I mean, that right there is one of the reasons I think it's one of the best toys of all time. Transformers is a very close second for me, but Lego is always going to have that top. So
yeah, for sure.
All right, so I think that'll pretty much wrap us up for today. Kevin Hinkle, thank you so very much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for asking me and inviting me. It was quite a pleasure.
It was a pleasure to talk to you, too. Really quick before we go, where can people find you?
So you can find me on social media at Mr. Kevin Hinkle. I also have a website, which is kevinahinkle.com. And if you want to follow my artwork, that is at Mr. Hinkle Draws.
I want to again thank Kevin Hinkle for joining us on today's podcast. It was an honor and a privilege to get to talk to him about his career. This will be all for this time. Thanks for listening.